And here comes Milwaukee. Forbes another three. Oh, no! This is the Random Scrub Heat Podcast.
Welcome to the next season of the Random Scrub Heat Podcast. I am your host, LJ Cascon. I have Hot Take Harry to my left. I have the Thunder from down under, down at the bottom of the screen, George. And we have Izzy Gutierrez back. Recurring guest, a very special guest to talk about all things positive, the Miami Heat. Miami Heat are currently 0-0. That's good enough for the play-in. They're also tied for first in the East. These are good things to be happy about. Izzy, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing? Are you excited to watch every bounce and basket of the Miami Heat this season?
George, you ever get tired of the same Australian references? Like the Thunder from down under. Could you like stand for a different nickname by
it's
now?
It's a lack of creativity because it's been the same thing for about 19 months now.
So we're taking shots.
Yeah, right off the bat. I mean, I was going to call him Crocodile Dundee, but you're beating me to the outdated references. Yeah. How can we be excited about the Miami Heat? There's a lot of ways to be excited about the Miami Heat. We can go very specific, or we can go broader terms. You tell me which one you'd rather go with.
Oh, that's very easy. Yes. Okay. So me personally, I know I don't just speak for me, Harry, and George also on the podcast. I speak for, honestly, a lot of Heat fans that I've seen specifically on Twitter. I know that's not like a great poll, I should say, for the vibe of Heat Nation right now, but a lot of people are kind of tuning them out this season, or kind of looks like they're taking a step back from dedicating 82 nights of their lives to watching this team. I want to know what you would say to kind of get them revved up, honestly, and you can honestly pick whether it be today or this season or something down the line to get them a little juiced up to make them want to tune in. Maybe talk about AJ. What's his last name from college? He goes to BYU, potential first overall pick. Maybe we talk about him. A dealer's choice.
No, I think we can stay in this season. I think there's a lot of things. Look, to be a Miami Heat fan is like any fanhood should be. Like, it should be a lifelong commitment, right? And people are acting like right now the Miami Heat are irrelevant. They're absolutely not. Their head coach is the head coach of Team USA. That's kind of a big deal. All right. And I don't think, and not to be a conspiracy theorist here, but I don't think the league's going to let the coach of Team USA look like a terrible coach on a bad team. You know what I mean? I think things might end up in the Heat's favor a little bit. And that's just, just seeing how things work out over the last, 30 years or 25 years in the business. Like, that's usually not something that happens, right? But just in terms of things that you are intrigued by going into the season, like this season kind of to me is all about what Ware actually is. Because he's either a nice piece or he's like a difference-making piece. And I don't know if a lot of people think he's going to be one or the other. I don't know I haven't been on Twitter for like more than a year now, so you guys can help me out. I feel a little detached from NBA Twitter, but I don't know what people think his ceiling is or where he's going to go from here, because I've seen a lot of people say, man, this guy could be a problem. And I'm like, yeah, if he plays like every game against Victor Wembanyama, is like super motivated and happens to hit a few shots, like he might be a problem. But there's a lot more that goes into being like a regular problem. So help me out there, first of all. What is the sort of opinion on Ware this year? What the expectations are if the Heat are going to be any good?
I think it's like, I saw that he led the preseason in scoring. That was kind of surprising. Like, I didn't realize.
Rebounding.
Yeah, I didn't realize that he was putting up points like that. I mean, obviously it wasn't a particularly good preseason for the Heat because they didn't win a game. And we know the last time they went 0-6 in the preseason, I think they won like 15 games, and that was obviously the year.
I don't care. I don't give a shit about preseason stats. Like, it's good. It could be anything. It could mean anything. It could mean nothing. But yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, you're not sold on them upping the pace, being in the top 10 in pace for the second consecutive preseason?
No, I get what you mean. I wouldn't put much stock into anything that happens in the preseason. I just think that's like an odd thing. There's a lot of teams in the league. There's a lot of players who play in the preseason.
Yeah.
For him to be number one is odd. I think it's super mixed. People are either like, this kid's really special. He just needs to obviously be motivated and not have the coach calling him out, but also being like, Spo's the right guy to motivate a player of his talent. or I'm kind of on the side where like I don't know if he's going to be great or not. Like I've just watched too many guys come like do well in Miami, hit their ceiling and then ultimately leave for nothing. And I'm getting tired of it. Like
All right, let's slow down because it's still past this year, right? So this year,
my bad.
So to me, no, it's okay. No, I'm not trying to tell you what to do on your own podcast. To me, with Khalil Ware, like for him to be a difference maker and to really elevate this team and make it look like, hey, maybe this could be the Pacers of, 2025, 26, because they're deep and, can maybe have one or two focal points, but they don't need to be great every single night. A lot of good defenders. But for that to happen, he basically has to be most improved caliber. Like that's the type of leap he has to make. Probably about from like 9 and 7, 9 and 8 to about like 16 and 11. Like that's the type of territory you got to be talking about for him. And it's interesting that he had those preseason rebounding numbers because that's the one thing I've just never thought he was a great rebounder. Like I thought for his size, interestingly enough, he wasn't a great rebounder and a great shot blocker. Like he could do different things at his size, which make him unique. And at that size, you're going to be a decent rebounder. The numbers are going to be there, but he's not like an aggressive, like I'm going to get you 30 rebounds a game. I'm going to, tip it to myself, that type of stuff. Like that's not him. But if I'm surprised, like if he proves me wrong with that and he becomes, surpasses Bam as easily the team's leading rebounder and it's really aggressive down there and just frees everybody else up, then I think you're looking at a team that could regularly just annoy the crap out of people. Like if Tyler decides he's going to go off, if Norm decides he's going to go off, if Andrew Wiggins decides he's going to be, Pascal Siakam for a night, he can do that. I think that's where maybe it'll only take a couple of months to make you lose your enthusiasm. But if you're looking at a team that can not build around Norm Powell and Khalil Ware, but not focus so much on the other guys, and they are more focal point-ish on this team, then you're looking at a team that it's hard to defend on any given night. It's hard to prepare for on any given night. And for the regular season, I mean, that's what's most important, right? Like the run and gun Phoenix Suns back in the day, like you'd be down 40 to 25 before you knew it. And then it's like, shit, I don't even know what to do here. We're already down. And we couldn't really prepare for this because we just played last night. So that's the type of stuff I think you could be hopeful for. And the only part where I will say, yeah, the preseason might take some of the air out of that is because you haven't really seen any of those moments. Now, I haven't spent too much time watching, Miami Heat preseason. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but the numbers seem to show that. And so I hope that things, turn out differently when it's regular rotation type of stuff and regular minutes. And I think that can happen, but it's not like it's just a run it back fully type of season and there's nothing to be excited about if you're in this thing for the long haul.
I would think the only thing I would say is from you not being on Heat Twitter in a while, the one big thing that people got on Ware about, especially in the series against the Cavs, was the motor thing. I'm sure you heard that during the draft process too. The one thing that all the teams were really talking about was, well, he's great, he's a unicorn, but his motor is questionable sometimes. And I haven't really seen. I think maybe because he is kind of that unicorn too in a Wembanyama type of build. Obviously, he's not the same thing, but I haven't seen Spo really hold anybody accountable the way that he's really honing in on Ware. And because he didn't do that to Bam, he didn't do that to Tyler. He has a huge soft spot for Drew Smith. I haven't seen, and he didn't do it to Chalmers either, honestly. If we're going back that far, the last time I saw him really like hold someone, nitpick someone, especially publicly like this, was probably Beasley, just because he was so talented and he just kind of, was very lax with the way he did things too. Do you see anything there on why maybe Spo is really nitpicking vocally the way that he's doing that to Ware?
How to say this without sounding like an asshole? I think you have to go that route sometimes if the regular conversation is not being heard or if you don't think it's being heard. And I think if you mentioned Michael Beasley, I'm going to take you on your word for that because I can't really think of anybody else that he did that to either. Just not I don't want to say not the brightest guys, but they don't show characteristics of studious guys. Like they're just kind of, you know, and a lot of times this comes from guys who either have ridiculous talent like Michael Beasley or ridiculous physical advantages like Ware. And so sometimes you've just got to hammer it home somehow. And if it hasn't really gotten through, whether it's summer league, early regular season, into his playing time last season, and then, into this summer, then he's going to have to see how he deals with it with public criticism. And I think, a lot of guys, it's sort of telling how they react to that is sort of telling on how they're going to handle these things long term, and whether they're going to, put in the work, or they're going to, act as if they were the victim. And I think, actually, was it Pat Riley? There was some element to that with Tyler Hero, right? Where it seemed like the organization was sort of spurring him on with some words publicly because he really needed to get his stuff together. I think that they've done that on occasion. Coming from Spo, you're right, I think is pretty unique. But I think that's why. And again, I don't want to sound like I'm calling him dumb. Like, I don't think Hillel Ware is dumb. I just think that sometimes, like the way you communicate, the way you come across, rather, as a player, it gives off something. And with Khalil, maybe it's like, maybe I don't need that much coaching, or maybe I think I know I'm pretty good, or, don't worry about it, coach, I got this type of stuff. And if he's going to say that type of stuff, it's like, all right, I'm just going to go public and say, you need to really work harder.
I think, the last thing, pretty much, they can't all be Shane Battier, right? To just put it nicely, not everyone can have a LeBron basketball IQ or a Shane Battier IQ or a work ethic.
Well, I'm glad you said basketball IQ thing too, right? Because that's where this offense is supposedly going, right? Where it's just like read and react and, drive and kick. And that does take a lot of hard work and a lot of basketball IQ. And when you said, the motor thing, that's essentially the same thing. If you have the size of Khalil Ware and you have the motor to match, that means you're going to get the rebounds, and that means you're going to get more blocked shots. And so that's basically what is missing. And so, yeah, I think, again, that's all part of the intrigue of the season, because it's not going to be quite as, shocking as like Hassan Whiteside, but he's going to have some games where you're just like, man, this guy is doing some stuff. And if it becomes, part of the defensive game plan, he forces other teams to have to game plan against him, and it becomes, frees up other people, then, again, could be very interesting. So, a team with Miles Turner at center just made the finals. And if he was shooting better, maybe they win that thing. So I think it's an intrigue to have him at center and see what he can be going into year 2.
I think my concern, and I can try to keep it to this season, is I think if you're a young team and then ultimately you think they'd be a bad team, at least you'd have these young guys to look forward to, and like, oh, where's their career going to go? What are we going to see from them? How are they going to grow? Or for a lot of the Heat seasons, they were a legitimate contender, and, what are our chances of winning? And most teams go balls to the wall to make sure that you do whatever you can to make sure you're competing. Mm-hmm. And so the Heat tend to find themselves now for multiple seasons in this middle ground, which we have always made fun of other teams for being, like the Hawks of years past, these teams that are just kind of stuck in the middle. And I understand that the Heat had this mentality that they're like always going to fight. They're not going to tank or anything. But like, if this season was not to go well, but Powell was playing well, like, I would be moving him for what you can. I would be, and I don't think they're going to do that. Like, this front office is more likely to extend Powell, who's, not young, but he's a bit older than a guy you want to be giving a 3 to 4 year extension to.
You know what that happens for this organization when, like, they have some pretty devastating injuries, or early season injuries at least, and then it's just like, all right, like, because if people are healthy, they don't have that, I'm going to lose on purpose DNA, but they also aren't just going to be bad because they're not that bad of a roster. And it's obviously a really good coaching staff, etc. So if they're healthy, they're never going to get to that, we're going to tank situation. But if it's just flat in their face by January, February, I think they do go that route. And I think, and maybe everybody's come to terms with this in the NBA now, but this new CBA has done its job basically. And I don't think that there is that same sort of mentality of we have to be relevant all the time. In fact, I feel like it's, without relegation and stuff like that, it's sort of forcing you to think of things in more of like, the European soccer model, where it's just like, this is a lifelong thing, right? It's we're constantly, whether we're going to win the league or whether we're going to go down or what, we're all in this together the whole time. There's something there, something to fight for. And if you think about it, Miami Heat kind of have been the closest thing to that, with the same ownership, and the same, GM and team, the guy running the team for 30 years now. It just kind of seems like that community feel where it's just like, all right, we used to be this all or nothing team, but now, hey, we've had this fan base sticking with us all this time. Yeah, they're getting a little impatient, but we are adjusting to the times, and trust us, we're going to get this right. And so it's not like these other franchises around the league where it's like, oh, we've gotten rid of coaches, we've gotten rid of GMs, trying to do anything we can to put some bait out there to get a star. Like, there's some continuity here. And to me, as a fan, that just kind of feels good, feels calming for some parts. I'm not overwhelmingly happy with what's going to happen this year, but I'm also not super furious at the organization either. So I don't know. I think there's something to that they don't really get enough credit for, just that level of continuity.
Well, just to play devil's advocate for a moment, do you think it's possible to, because like you said, they've had the same voice, right,
Mm-hmm.
for however many years now? It has been all of my life, honestly. So it's like, do you think, because we've seen it in other sports too, like Andy Reid and the Eagles, the message gets stale after a while and you need to change things up. And I'm not saying fire Spo, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying change philosophy maybe, because the way that they do business, in my opinion, seems a little outdated. It seems like the league has kind of shifted.
Mm-hmm.
It's obviously not a free agency game anymore. And I will ask you about their free agency comments that they've made in the media over the last couple of days. But do you think that maybe they could benefit from having some fresh voices on the coaching staff? Because it does seem, I think echo chamber is a little bit too drastic of a word. I don't think that's necessarily what goes on in the coaching staff, but they've had the same issues on offense for a couple seasons now, even when Jimmy was still Jimmy. So do you think they could bring anything in?
I don't really know if there's a scheme that you can really pull out that just makes this roster, this explosive offensive roster. I don't think Spo is in this echo chamber, largely because he's around other great coaches. He's doing, Team USA stuff all the time. So, and he takes in all this stuff from other coaches and take notes and stuff. I don't, yeah. I mean, I think I'm still waiting to see Spo again with this sort of alien talent and see what he can do with them. Obviously, with LeBron and Dwayne, it was just overwhelming. But like, I'd love to see him with a Giannis in his prime. Love to see him, with a KD in his prime, because I think he probably could maximize their talents. But I think, if you look around, he's pretty much done that with the guys. And it's not like Tyler Hero's going to go somewhere else and average 30 or Bam's going to go somewhere else and average 25. So it's like, it feels like we have been getting the most out of this group.
I guess it probably falls on more of like a roster construction kind of thing then. But George, I know you've been itching. Go ahead and jump in there.
Just to add some more spice onto those comments that you just made before, I'll give the organization their flowers. They have, an amazing development system. They really can bring the best out of people, out of players in their older stages, or even players that people don't really recognize that much talent in early on, like the Duncan Robinsons and the Caleb Bartons of the world, to do that. It just depends on when, in my opinion, the fatigue sets in with the rest of their philosophy and the way that they do business and manage their basketball operations, where we've been in a state of, it's been stagnant for the last few years, which is fine. You've been developing, you've brought people like Harkes through the door. Same thing with Jovic, same thing with Ware. You've been building your talent. Latest edition, Caspar, which looks Caspar. I don't actually remember how to say his name.
That's close enough, yeah.
A horrible thing to say, but it's a great thing to see when you're bringing this young talent in. But then there's also the addition in free agency where you have to be aggressive at some point. And
Mm-hmm.
now we were targeting 2024, targeting 2023, targeting this year. This year made a little bit less sense to be able to, go ham in free agency and bring in 2 or 3 players that are going to try and make the difference. There's not really a what's the word I'm looking for? Like a place for all of that talent yet, because we don't know what Ware's going to be. We don't know where Harkes is going to end up by the end of the season. In what time frame do you feel like the Heat need to make that sort of that push? Is it when you know what Harkes is going to be? If you're going to extend Hero, when is the right time to pull the trigger on that and get a free agency acquisition like a Giannis try? Like, you know, obviously not going to be through free agency, but bring a player like that through the door to really, you know, galvanize the unit and make something of it.
So I think more likely would be one of these other situations where the team is playing surprisingly well. Again, not to, you know, use the Pacers as an example again, but and then somebody like a Pascal Siakam becomes available, and all of a sudden you're looking at this as a contending team in the Eastern Conference. Then you're you're sort of looking at that small window. I feel like it's like a retracting window. It just kind of opens and closes depending on what your goals are. The other option being that a little bit more extreme, I think, than you're even suggesting, but I hate to piggyback on Kendrick Perkins of all people, but the move that would, to me, signify, hey, look, we love you. We've been doing this for a while now. We need to, you know, sort of conform to whatever this NBA is and be honest with ourselves. We need to get a haul back for Bam. And that wouldn't be an insult to Bam. It would almost be a decent way to let him go, you know, play for a contender again if they don't see themselves doing that. And I think that's something that I don't think they will have gotten there by, let's say, January, February, unless it becomes like, again, this injury-plagued, terrible season, or they just can't figure anything out with the offense. But I think that would be more of the interest, like, it's a weird way to say this, but the quick fix, right? Where you just like, cut the cord and go and start building from there. But I think that would be the two more likely scenarios when it comes to, you know, player acquisition that means something and when they're going to do it.
I was having a think about this last night, actually, with the whole Bam situation. I did see the Kendrick Perkins, segment in which he said they might have to pull the trigger on that and finally
His source was his gut on that one, just so I believe we're all clear.
Good source.
Yeah.
Always
That's a great
trust it,
source.
right?
A lot to choose from.
Love it.
Unless you eat spicy food, then you probably don't want to try it.
He is one of those players that can really shift the entire direction of your franchise, whether it's for future development or even in the right here, right now. Like, you can, if the Bucks are looking at trading Giannis, Bam could be an option in that sense of like, okay, well, we can go get someone like Giannis through the door, but it's going to cost us Bam and someone like Jovic.
Well, that's the game that you just wonder, right? Like, first of all, we all know that these players can sort of, unless you're KD somehow, can sort of tell you where they want to go. And I just don't think a situation where you're losing Bam is going to bring a championship or bust guy like Giannis into the equation, right? So that's where I'm saying it's just like, you're not losing Bam to bring in the big talent that's going to replace him. You're bringing him, you're getting multiple pieces and a bunch of assets and maybe even aiming for a number one pick. I haven't even looked at next year's draft yet. But stuff like that level of extreme that we're talking about, the thing that the Heat have very rarely done, and the one time they did probably pissed them off because they got Michael Beasley out of it instead of Derrick Rose. So I think, I think that would be the more likely scenario, because to trade Bam for another player that's going to get you close but not close enough, I don't think is something they're interested in doing.
I think that kind of leads into where they're headed down this path of, you're not stuck with Bam. Bam's incredible, but eventually you have to have in the back of your mind, players ask out at will these days, and they haven't exactly surrounded Bam with the right pieces to maximize his game, in my opinion. And you did say Spo. It's like, if you trade Bam somewhere else, he's not going to be the same Bam as he is under Spo's system. He's just not. But they haven't really done the right amount of, aside from wildly that I'm saying this in a complimentary fashion, getting him Kyle Lowry for that one season that really kind of opened up Bam's game a little bit too, because Kyle was actually doing things that you wanted a point guard to do.
That the season he shot 57%?
Yeah. Like
that with Kyle?
I think so. All I know is there was that first season. It was that first season where it was like, okay, this is what Bam can look like when someone is running the show and getting him in his spots at the right time of the shot clock to be able to get him like a good look all the time. And he's opened it up a little bit since then too. And I think he's fallen in love a little too much with the 3-point game, which is it's so annoying. Fans can never be happy, right? We're banging the door for Bam, shoot the 3, and then he shoots the 3 last season. We're like, all right, man, let's not do it that much. But I want to lead that into Tyler Hero a little bit too, because the players that are around Bam, they're not a championship team right now. Powell was phenomenal. It was really a 1 step forward, 2 steps back thing where it's like you went and got Powell, and you're like, oh my God, maybe they're changing their thought process a little bit. Then they trade Haywood Highsmith, then have to include a 2nd round pick to get rid of him. It's like, okay, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Leading to Tyler, though, the clock is ticking. Harry said it before we even started. There's like 2.5 hours now for them to decide on whether or not, when we're recording right now, on if they're going to give them the extension or the time for them to. It's the whole contract thing. Harry can explain it better than I can. But what do you think that number looks like for Tyler if the Heat even offer something? Because I know he originally wanted 50 something. That's not happening. The Heat have said that's not happening. Do you think they come down and offer him something fair in like the high 30s or low 40s? Or do you think that they look to move him potentially? Because Heat fans shit on him a lot, and some of it's justified, some of it's just not. He's a good player, but they can get something back for him if they maximize this window. Let's say, like you said, the season goes down the drain, right? There's injuries, the same way that what happened when they got Beasley that season where they won 15 games. Something like that isn't out of the realm of possibility come January. So it's like, do you see a possibility where if they can't meet in the middle on a number that makes Tyler happy, could you see them theoretically trying to, for once, move a player at the right time to get assets back?
I feel like I don't know if that's the same discussion with Tyler as it always is because regardless of like where I take this, when I say, hey, 24, 5 and 5 at 47% shooting for a guard, that you should pay for that. Like that deserves money. But then you get to the playoff stats and say, oh yeah, that's a little different. I think that's where the question mark, I don't know if it's too big. I think the issue with the Heat is obviously it looks like, setting up for 2027, which, why set up for free agency anymore when, what was it? Paul George was the last true free agent that switched teams. Technically everything else is all like sign and trades or whatever. So, I could see a scenario where if he's being stubborn and thinks he can get, 45, 50 million. And to be honest, I've lost the numbers a long time ago since I didn't have to actually follow this or keep track of the CBA that closely. I'm not really paying that close attention to players' numbers, but I could see them in a situation where the Heat forces he forces the Heat's hand and they move on from him. It's more than likely a situation where they are both going to be a lot more clear even after this year as to what kind of player he is, what kind of postseason player he is, and what they can do with him as a lead, if not second guard. It's probably a cop out, but I just don't know if we know yet is the answer. Like, I don't think last year did that much to really solve answer everybody's questions about him. And that obviously translates into whether or not he should be getting that much money and whether he should be able, or his money should keep them from, adding somebody else. So it's still tricky with him. I think he's got to be a similar like in terms of production, a similar player this year, but just be even slightly more efficient. And then, for once, I say that as if I've been like waiting for him to do this, but really just have a postseason performance outside of the bubble to remember.
I guess my thoughts on Hero and just the things that I have an issue with the Heat in general is this: like, if I was negotiating and you have, like, as LJ was explaining, basically they have until midnight tonight to extend Hero, and then if that deadline passes, they can talk extension, but they're not gonna be able to sign an extension until next offseason. Here's my thing. You come up with a number that you think makes sense for Tyler Hero, and that should be the number. Nothing should change that. Nothing he does this season should ultimately change that. I don't see him in year, what are we at, 6 or 7 now, becoming this great playoff guy. He's a guy who's going to put up numbers in the regular season. He's always going to have his deficiencies on defense,
Yeah, that's why I say, like, I don't think either thing's going to happen. I don't think it's going to be this jump to 26 points a game, or I don't think he's going to fall off, or they're going to be like, okay, let's trade him now. Like, I think it's going to be, all right, let's just move this discussion to next year, see if either side is surprised, because this is a number we're good at. If you're not there with that number, we can wait a year, because I don't see a situation where he gets angry, demands a trade. Like, we see that working out for him. I don't.
He already said he wasn't going to pull a Jimmy, so
yeah.
But he did say he doesn't mind if they don't get the extension because the price will go up next year, because he's simply looking at that it's inflation of the NBA contracts. Like
right, he's also betting on himself in a sense, being confident in himself, and said, "I'm just going to follow this up with another improved year, and the number's going to go up." That's the way he has to think.
But my issue is, if you have a price, if you say Tyler's worth $35 million a year, if that's what the Heat decide he's worth, which for me, again, I wouldn't extend him again. If he walks for nothing, which it's not a good asset management, but I'd be okay with it. I don't think he's a winning player for what they need. But if the Heat decide this is the number and he's far apart, and his agent's saying we're never going to get close to that, it's not going to be any better next offseason. When the trade deadline rolls around and there's a year and a half left on his contract, that's the best time to move a player who you're not going to keep.
Sure. But is that the sense you're getting with this negotiation? Like, it is that far apart? To me, I think it's a little bit more of what we were saying before, where I don't think either side feels the urgency. I don't think Tyler's side necessarily, like, granted, yeah, you want to lock that in for as big a number as you can. But if he honestly believes that, after this injury, he will have another, season, and that's pointing in that right direction, that he could demand that money again. If he makes another, I don't think he's going to, he's not going to have enough games. But if he has another all-star type of season, I think he's going to command that type of money from anybody. So I think he's got to convince himself that that is a possibility.
I don't know if the urgency is there on either side, like you're saying, but my thought is simple. Like, make your decision about him as the player, and then make the move that's going to help this team. Like, you brought up the nuclear option of trading Bam. If that's what they want to do, and that's the move forward, like the step back to eventually move forward, that's fine. I love Bam, and he's been a great player for the Miami Heat. And if he wants to be here for his whole career, I'd be great. I'd be fine with that. Like, I don't think anyone would be upset if Bam spent all of his days in the Heat jersey.
But you're saying Tyler also, like, you got to almost be more proactive with him before you even make the nuclear decision.
Yeah, I think you need to say, this is a guy who ultimately has done, like, I always say this, Tyler was a very good draft pick, like being a lottery pick. He's obviously turned out very well for what he's done in his career. Mm-hmm. I think he's ultimately hurt the Heat because they were basically saying, this guy can be this, this, and this. And he's kind of like, yes, he was an all-star last year, but his game has kind of stagnated at the level that it's at. And I don't think it's benefiting everybody else around him. And once you get to that point and the guy's saying, hey, I'm an all-star, I want to raise.
Yeah.
You have to say, okay, while we're happy, like we're glad you're here and we're happy what you've done for the team, we're going to move in another direction, and it's not going to involve you. And you got to do it now, because if you wait to next offseason, then the value is only for one season, plus the team having to pay him again. That diminishes the value, and you lost trading him for a postseason. And I think teams are just like, I think the Heat are just kind of content to just let stuff be. And though we got the propaganda coming out again that they think they can win a championship, which is, I think they just say that regardless of on the team. They probably should have said that when they had James Johnson and those guys. They probably thought they can win a championship too. So
Deion Waiter slander? No,
propaganda's okay.
Not today.
I'm just at the point where it's like, as a Heat fan, again, I talk about this a lot. Like, they came into being in the exact same year I was born. I've always felt this kinship to them. Some of my greatest sports memories are either watching Heat games or being in that arena for some of the best moments of my life. Like, but that's a decade ago now. Let's make some moves. Let's do something. If it's taken a year off to
honestly, I think the Jimmy situation has had probably I don't know, opened the door for more personnel change. I think it just sort of makes you recognize the coldness of the business. And if it's right in front of you, like even Tyler Hero's just be like, oh, okay, like life goes on. If somebody tries to destroy your franchise or it's, some big name leaves your team and goes somewhere else. Okay. And so he's probably looking at things as opposed to before where being traded would have looked like an insult because you're not good enough to be our franchise guy. Now he could look at it and be like, hey, might not be so terrible somewhere else. And I think, so I think that probably has left that door open, a little bit more realistically for both sides. But I think where you have to be just really, really honest with Tyler Hero is, look, in today's NBA, if you're going to be, maybe Steph Curry's an anomaly, but you can't be a defensive liability on the perimeter. Actually, it's not just a liability. Like you have to be a plus defender. Like you have to be like an Andrew Nembhard out there to be able to just affect the game and not be, picked on that side. And when the Cleveland Cavaliers are vocally like in the press picking on you, it's just like, all right, we can be real here. Like that's not a $50 million player if one side of the ball is going to be a problem. And on the other side, you're not Steph Curry. So it sounds terrible to say because it sounds like an insult, but you're not Steph Curry is not really an insult.
I don't
it's also
think
like, oh, sorry, Harry. Just one quick thing. It's like Dizzy's point. It's one thing if like you're getting your face fried off by Donovan Mitchell, right? Everyone can just be like, if you're Tyler too, it's like, well, you put up a good effort. It's Donovan Mitchell. What are you going to do, man? Like he's going to get hot some nights. He's one of the best players in the league for a reason. If it's Ty Jerome, that's another conversation to be like, you got to get in the lab. I don't think Tyler has the intangibles physically to be able to be a plus defender. But
tangibles, the actual tangible. He doesn't like he's just a little bit too thin, a little bit.
I don't
want
to be the one to say it.
Yeah, I think Tyler will even tell you. Like he's not going to. He will never be all NBA, all defense. Like he knows that, and I think he's got limitations there, which is why he's been trying to work his butt off to be the best defender he could possibly be, but also just make sure that offensively he's a problem, right? And he makes the other people work. So it's tough. It's just when you're that lead guy these days in the NBA, more than likely you're going to have to, D up like. Tyrese Halliburton, does he get picked on a lot defensively? I think he holds his own pretty much. So I can't really think of too many guys that are looked at that way, the way Tyler is.
I think the issue, like you were saying, is I don't even know if you have to be a good defender per se. I don't think you can be the guy that people are game planning and hunting you in the postseason.
And it's exhausting. Like you've got to defend the best player all the time because they're hunting you. Oh, and on the other end, now I've got to go get some buckets.
And you ironically had Garland, who was hurt, and he's also a guy that's not a great defender.
Also being like defender, yeah.
We just look for Tyler out there, and it's like, okay, if they're saying it out loud, that's because they're so comfortable. They know you're not gonna be able to adapt that they can call it out. I just don't know how the Heat like. I think you can. This is how I feel. I think you can have one bad defender on the floor, and you can have so many other wings and guys that can really establish their length and style that you could say, all right, we'll be okay. Like I think that's what some teams were trying to do. Like I think that's what the Bucks were trying to do with Dame. Obviously, that went bad.
The Celtics with Isaiah Thomas during those years
too.
I think that.
I think you can do it if there's multiple guys who are weak on defense. I just think teams and the way that offense is these days, it's so easy to draw up something that's going to scheme you right out of the game. And that's kind of where I'm at with him. Like if Tyler was this great postseason guy, offensively and wasn't doing as much defensively, like we could have an argument. It's just been year after year of the same thing. And I think most people are like, they don't have any issues with him personally, or, but I just think when are we moving on? And I don't know.
Well,
George.
It could work out in your favor for what you want this year because he's missing at least the first month, right? Does that mean the first month, meaning like October? So he's only missing potentially like the first 8 days or a month of basketball? I'm not really sure. I'm assuming it's a month, right?
They said 4 weeks, but then he's been kind of hinting that it'll be sooner. So I don't really know ultimately what it'll be, but I just am like, I don't know if the team's going to – the schedule's kind of hard early off. I don't know if they're going to start off well and then Tyler's going to come back or they're going to start off terribly and they're going to say, oh, yeah, we need Tyler. So
I still think this team, like regardless of what the offense wants to do, is going to be a bitch to score against if they're healthy. And so, it could be a situation where, their defense allows their offense to find its way early on and they're not terrible. And all of a sudden Tyler comes in and gives you 20 points a game again. And you look, pretty decent. I think what could happen is if Norm and Kalel, and then, obviously Wiggins, and aggressive Wiggins, if they continuously show ways that this offense is different, or at least has different focal points, then Tyler can come in and maybe won't be required to do as much. And frankly, in those situations, at this point in his career, I think he would love that, to play a little bit more free without the responsibility. I think you'd see probably the most efficient version of him. So it could work out in your favor that way, but it's, critical that the start has to go well. And I keep reading, they're not really working on defense that much. It's mostly on offense. I'm pretty sure the defense will be fine.
Princess
put it
Leia,
out there as well.
Before we end it,
say what? What'd you say?
I said I want to know if Princess Leia had one more question before we ended it.
Yeah, I do. Thank you very much, Drew Smith.
Luke Skywalker, thank you.
Anyway, the way the Heat operate, in my opinion, is like that old style trapdoor where the back of the room is like coming closer to you and pushing you through to the other side.
Okay.
And until they can press the button, it won't stop.
Hmm.
I'm going to go out on a limb.
It's like the trash compactor in Star Wars.
Absolutely.
Why would you?
Absolutely.
Why would you just lock that up?
I'm not going to lie. I've had this in the bucket for about 8 minutes now, and just until you said Star Wars, then as soon as I said it, I'm like, he's going to make the reference.
That's
anyway,
because I wouldn't have gotten the Star Wars trash compactor reference.
We're nerds. It's fine. They operate very much like that. Now, this is the season where you're in a weakened East. You have a hero who's going to come back from injury. Hopefully, is going to be one of the only productive guards in the East that can actually make a run at getting an All-Star and making it straight on the first ballot. I feel like that's a possibility for him. On the other side of the coin, you underperform, you got nowhere to hide. You're in the middle of contract negotiation talks. It's do or die. Yeah. For your contract, for the future of your career, you're going to be the guy who scored that one big contract, or you're going to be fighting for your 2 years every now and again. Now, the way the Heat, I feel, operated the offseason was largely indicative of a team that's just going to be targeting cap relief. You got Wiggins coming off that big contract next year. If he accepts his play option, which he will, it's $30 million. Why wouldn't he? You traded away Duncan. You got rid of Haywood Highsmith, who was a plus defender, by the way, was your second best point of attack defender. And you gave up a second round pick to do it. Now, it's cap centric. The entire philosophy of the Heat, I feel like for the next year and a half is going to be, how can they minimize the amount of cap you're absorbing for that 2027 draft, the free agency period. Hero's equation is completely separate, but it's tied in as well, if that makes sense. He plays well, he gets the extension because they can build around him. That's completely fine. But I feel like if they don't have every question answered, they're going to do what Harry said, where they're going to be looking for trades. They're going to be quite active in looking to get rid of a contract of that size. If he's not budging from his $50 million, $48 million extension, and we're offering him 36 to 41, I feel like it's more likely than not. I feel like this is the first year where it's more than 50% chance that gets explored.
Yeah, and I would even go further in saying, like, I don't know if people really think that this East is not that good, but it could end up being pretty deep. Like, teams like, obviously Cleveland's supposed to be up there, but like the Magic are supposed to be really good. The Knicks will still be up there. Milwaukee. I don't know if people think Boston's just going to fall off a cliff without Jason Tatum, but that's not going to happen. I think the Hawks are going to be pretty good. The Pistons are going to be better. And God, this sounds crazy to say out loud, but I think maybe the Hornets this might be their year where they see some postseason. So at least if they're, three main guys stay healthy. So it could be where, it could be the opposite. And it could be where it's just early on, it's pretty obvious that this group is going nowhere and they do start selling off. And that does mean, in my opinion, I think that would be it. Like that would be time to cut loose and cut ties and just see what you can get, because not only is that it's a big move for the franchise and everything else, but for the NBA, like you start moving these pieces around, it could be pretty exciting in terms of, the championship puzzle or the championship story around the league. So I don't know. I'm not ready to say that that's what's going to happen. If I was a betting man on that, I would say that's the more likely scenario, unfortunately. But I think every franchise or, ownership group or, group that's running an organization front office has to go through it at some time. And sometimes it just has to slap you in the face. And I think that very well could happen this year.
All right. As we wrap up now, I guess you guys are going to hear from me, Harry, and George plenty of times throughout the season on what we think about the team. But Izzy's the guest. I want to end. What do you think if you had to say what seed, or even I'll do you one better. If you had to say, if your life depended on it, to give the true, honest answer of did the Heat get out of the play-in? They don't have to do the play-in this year. They make the playoffs as a top 6 seed. Do you think that happens this year?
No.
There it is.
I think it's like too many injuries have to happen for other teams for that because if everybody stays healthy and it's just, I see them being, 7, 8, 9 again.
Hey, the tradition continues. We all celebrate it when it happens because it's been 4 years now? Why not get it? Let's get a 5th. Let's roll out that 5th year, guys. I'm excited for it. But yeah, Izzy, thank you so much for joining us. Anything you want to promote before we head out of here?
No.
Nice and relaxing.
Listen
nice
to Stu
chill...
Gatson Company, the FanDuel, presented by FanDuel, I think.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. No, thanks, man. We appreciate having you on. We look forward to reaching out, having you on again sometime in the season when we really need to it'll probably happen after we haven't done a pod in 2 months and we just really need to do something because the Heat have just depressed us. But we're really excited right now because they don't have a losing record right now. There's so much promise. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. We appreciate you. We'll talk to you again soon. Take care. Be good people.
Need a stop and a rebound. Fournier for 3.
That was the Random Scrub Heat podcast.